Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Kingdom Hearts 2 Critical Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Space Paranoids, which I haven't seen Tron in about 20 years, so I have absolutely no idea if that name is something reminiscent to the film. I assume it's the name of something that is associated with it, but I honestly have no memory of Tron outside of the visual aesthetics and Jeff Bridges. But the mission here is actually one of my most preferred ones. I think the Tron level on this game is handled really nicely. There's a mixture of puzzles, platforming and combat. There's also a skateboard. I'm not entirely sure why, but you know, I'll just nod my head and say, yeah, that's cool, I guess. But this particular mission here wants you to break these boxes. There's a specific one that is a switch. That's the one you have to hit or break. And it's going to try to confuse you like the guy with the cups does on the street to try and earn some money with his little parlour trick. But you have to find the one that was glowing red, and that's the one you have to beat up. And the biggest enemy here is the lock-on. And, shall we say, Sora's overzealous actions, because he hits multiple targets. But it's not that difficult to follow it. It's difficult to get the lock-on to do what you want. But this is just one of those sequences where, if you're like me... Where is it? Where is it? Look at the cheeky bastard. I suppose if we had glide here, it'd make it really, really useful. But when you nail it right, you clear it. It's not too bad. It's pretty interesting, I guess. And then there's a transition as we get back here. As we go back towards the pit cell after the mission. And then we're going to be getting out of this place. Or are we going to be going further? No, we're going to the research lab. So a lot of the times in this particular level, you're going to move back into this studio here, you're going to talk to some people, you're going to get a big exposition dump, and then you're going to go back into a world or go elsewhere. For instance, I think you get a power here, one of the drive forms. It might be the master form or the limit form. I couldn't actually tell you. And that's the only problem when you're playing a game and you're recording it, because you're skipping a lot of things, so you're losing a lot of the context, and regardless of how good your memory is, there's always certain details that you're just not going to have absorbed or fully cognitized to share with people, because it's not the stuff that your brain thinks is important, and thus it just omits it as white noise. And that's what a lot of parts of this game are to me. It's the stuff that I'm so used to doing, I don't really think about it anymore, and sometimes that can be actually a pretty bad thing. As I'm talking to a few people here, just in case, just to see if anything triggers. One thing that I found out from playing 1.5 ReMix was when you talked to people throughout the game at further stages from where they were, they would give you things like upgraded magic, and I haven't come across anything like that on this game. I don't know if it's the same kind of mechanic. Luckily enough, I don't use the magic too much for me to really want the next level of it. Obviously, I've yet to realise just how good Reflect is. But aside from maybe Cura, when I'm really desperate, you don't see me using magic too much. Fire's great for crowd control, Blizzard's great for freezing things that are vulnerable, and Lightning is really good after using Magnet to get rid of a ton of things. But here is the light bike section. It's a pretty cool section, I like it. It reminds me of the Korra minigame, and I actually think that this is probably better than that, because the ones on Korra, I think the first time you do them, they're perfectly serviceable, but when you want to play the game and you kind of want to get past them, that's when they start to become a problem. Like, it's very easy to make mistakes, the checkpoints are actually quite, you know, spaced between, and there are multiple ways to approach certain obstacles, so sometimes you can get a little bit carried away trying to avoid something and end up getting yourself killed because you did the least effective way of getting around said obstacle. But, of course, this came much before that Legend of Korra game, and this is a better game, hands down. That being said, I am still going to go back to Korra and maybe do a platinum run of Extreme. I might do that when I get an Xbox One, once my heartbreak has passed, and there's a little more reasons for me to own one other than Sunset Overdrive, which I think that game is amazing. I think it's so beautiful, it's so fun, it's so finely tuned and interesting. Alright there, if you're wondering what I was trying to do, I was trying to see if it got invulnerability when I did the action to go through the pillars. You don't, and I'm going to hit a wall here, which is kind of great. But it goes to show, folks, you don't have to have really good driving skills to do this section, even on critical. because I am a shit driver at those moments and I got through it with ease. So there you go. But there are only two, if I'm going to be really pedantic, and I generally am when it comes to things I dislike with a game or I disagree with, I go down onto a highly detailed mechanical level, because they're generally the only times certain games trip up in my eyes. And that's what Sunset Overdrive is like. I put a good few hours into that game, and I've yet to find anything truly wrong with it. Overarchingly, things that are wrong with it are all preferential things. For instance, I think the stories are to shit, I think the characters are terrible, and I think the humour misses more than it hits. So I have no interest in that game storyline-wise, but I don't think you have to, and that's a good thing, because the gameplay is why I'm there. I love the freedom, I love the movement, I love the chaining of the abilities, I love the crazy guns. One niggle I have with it is some of the bigger story missions are so interesting and use the mechanics so well that they make all the other missions that are fetch quests and menial tasks that don't really utilise anything that makes the game unique come off as looking really shitty, cashed in and cookie cutter. And I think that's a little bit of a shame when you contrast them with the boss fight against the giant fizzy pop head creature, and you know, setting off those cores by launching yourself into them and making them explode. There's some really nice set pieces in that game, but they undercut the smaller moments, and I think that's a bit of an issue for the game. My other two problems with it are incredibly tiny. One of them is you can't change camera sensitivity, and I believe that's got something to do with the frame rate, because it's only 30 frames per second, and that game has a lot of particle effects and a lot of visual effects happening all the time. It looks amazing, it really does. So at 60 it might look a little choppy, because there's a couple of times when the frame rate does dip, and if you could spin the camera around the way I like to be able to do so, then it'll probably look even worse, because it's one of the ways that they hide the processing. So aside from camera control, there's no ability to completely strip all your guns off your weapon wheel and then realign them. You have to do them all individually and swap them out, and I just find it really obtuse. Like, that's literally the extent of the issues I had with it. Things like the map. Sometimes when you zoom out on the map and you're looking for the icon where you need to go, all the icons look the same and none of them are that different, so it can be quite difficult to find the one you wanted. It's very small things, you know, just slight oversights. Things like waypoints not turning up on the minimap but turning up on the HUD instead, and sometimes when you've played a lot of these games you look at the minimap more than you do the HUD. So aside from that, awesome game. Anybody who's got an Xbox One, I recommend you check it out, because you might just love it. But anything else to say about this level? Not much, aside from a couple of these encounters here. Any of the ones with the larger purple creature? That thing is deadly, that thing is a killer. It will just murder you out of nowhere. This creature here, it has two forms. It has kind of like a... It rotates its central chassis to do different things. When it's on the ground and when it's on the air, it does different attacks, but it will shred you if you're my level, and my level is pretty much the level you're meant to be. I've done no farming, I've just played the game up to where we are. Somebody mentioned in a comment that they were getting one-shot by a move that I could take quite well, and they thought maybe they were under-leveled, and if that's happening to you, if you're watching something in this video and you're dying faster than I am in certain areas, it might be to do with your level, but the thing it's probably most to do with is your equipment. The stuff I'm editing out is me going back to Hollow Bastion when I have synthesis materials and making things. You know, I'm editing out, swapping out all my equipment and gear by selling it and repurchasing the best stuff, so at any given point, I'm wearing the best possible defense and AP items I can. And that's the kind of stuff that a walkthrough you don't see, because that's the stuff that you should be doing yourself. You know, that's the stuff you need to stay vigilant with. That's the key to success. And there's nothing stopping you from farming an area, getting a ton of synthesis material, and leveling up your Moogle to get stuff that you shouldn't really have that early on, because it's wickedly powerful. And that's the kind of stuff I love to do, but it's the type of visually stimulating, you know, stuff in a video that's kind of tedious. So as a guide maker, it's what you want to mitigate and get rid of. And the beauty of when you make a video like this, or if you're a part of any kind of production process for videos, it doesn't matter if it's for YouTube, for your personal collection, or for university or school, is nobody sees the stuff that doesn't end up in the final thing. And some of the stuff that doesn't end up in it can be all the most time-consuming things, can be the stuff you even spent the most effort on. And that's the irony of all of it. Sometimes what you don't see is the real deal, and that's something that I think walkthroughs will inevitably suffer from, but playthroughs will also suffer from, because sometimes you get too much of that. But thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.